Welcome all international students and scholars to the Office of International Services. Here we will provide you with everything you need to know about taxes as a non-resident international student. Disclaimer. The aim of this presentation is to provide you with a general understanding of tax principles as they apply to international students and scholars, so it is for information purposes only. Each individual has a unique tax position and is responsible for their own tax determination and compliance. In this video, we will provide an overview of taxes, including why international students must file taxes, when you have to file taxes, and what determines your residency status for tax purposes. Next, we will discuss what income documents are required for tax filing. And finally, we will guide you to the tutorial that shows you how to use SprintTax. So, let's get right into it. Why do international students have to file taxes? This is the question that most international students and scholars ask first. Non-residents are required to comply with all U.S. laws, including IRS regulations. Filing tax forms with the International Revenue Service, the IRS, is part of your visa requirements. And all non-residents, even if they have not worked or earned an income during the year, need to file at least one form, the 8843. The most important takeaway we want to highlight here is that not filing taxes can negatively affect your future immigration status in the U.S. For example, if you plan to apply for an H-1B visa in the future, there's a high chance that you will be asked to provide evidence of tax compliance in your visa interview. Failing to meet tax compliance could slow down or cause your H-1B application to be denied. So it's important to ensure that you fulfill your tax obligations every year you are in the U.S. Also, if it is determined that you owe the IRS money, you will likely have to pay fines, penalties, and accrue interest on that money until it is repaid in full. Or, on the flip side, you may be eligible for a refund from the IRS. But the only way to receive a tax refund is by submitting your tax return form on time. So, you may be wondering, when do we file taxes? Great question. The 2023 tax filing season is the same as our regular calendar year. It covers the period from January 1st to December 31st of 2023. The IRS will look at all the income you generate during this period, how much tax was withheld from the income, and how many days you spent in the U.S. during this time. Another important date is the deadline for filing your tax return form. Circle it on your calendar. The filing deadline for the 2023 tax filing season is Monday, April 15th, 2024. Make sure you submit your tax return form by that day. The next question is, what determines residency for tax purposes? First, it is important to understand that your tax residency is different from your visa or immigration status. So, being a non-resident in terms of immigration status doesn't necessarily mean you're a non-resident for tax purposes. The key determinant of whether you are a resident or non-resident for taxes is the actual number of days you've spent in the U.S. Generally, most international students and scholars who are on FJM or Q visas are considered non-residents for tax purposes. But the IRS has a rule for international students on J1 or F1 visas. They are automatically considered non-residents for the first 5 calendar years they spend in the U.S. After that 5-year period, the IRS will look at your substantial presence test. For the scholars and researchers on J1 visas, the case is slightly different. Instead of 5 calendar years, they are considered non-residents for tax purposes the first 2 calendar years only. After spending 2 years in the U.S. with the J visa, the IRS will evaluate your substantial presence test to determine your tax status. It's important to define what counts as a calendar year for tax filing purposes. For example, if you arrived in the U.S. on December 30th, 2023, but the university semester starts on January 10th, 2024, the IRS will actually count 2023 as your first calendar year present in the U.S., even if you only spent 2 days of 2023 in the country. Be very mindful of this. After either 2 or 5 calendar years, the IRS will use your substantial presence test to figure out your residency for tax purposes. The substantial presence test reviews the number of days of your presence in the U.S. in the last 3 years to determine your residency tax status. If you are considered a resident for tax purposes, Sprint Tax will not proceed with your filing, and you'll need to use a resident tax provider, like TurboTax, to file your taxes. If you don't know whether you would count as a resident or not for tax purposes, do not worry. The good news is that Sprint Tax will figure out your tax status for you for free. All you need to do is complete Step 1 of the Sprint Tax questionnaire to find out whether you are a resident or non-resident for tax purposes. And this service is provided free of charge. Let's explore some popular types of income in the U.S. that trigger tax filing requirements. First is employment income, which is the most common type of income. Consider your earnings from your job as part of this category. Additionally, you may have a scholarship that covers expenses beyond your tuition, such as room and board or a stipend. Investment income, or cryptocurrency, also falls into this tax filing category. All of these income sources are considered reportable and require you to file a tax form. Some less common types of income that also require you to file taxes can include the following. For example, winnings from gambling. Say you won money in a Las Vegas casino. You may be asked to file taxes for that winning. Or you might be part of a focus group and receive a gift card. Or you receive income from your Airbnb rental. Or you sell your art or designs for profit. All of these sources are considered reportable as they constitute U.S. source income, requiring tax filing. Next, on the second column, we will look at income types that do not trigger a filing requirement for non-residents. First is a scholarship that covers tuition and tuition-related expenses. If you are an athlete that has a scholarship that covers your tuition, it may also cover your room and board. Since your scholarship covers more than your tuition, it's considered a taxable scholarship and is considered an income. However, if your scholarship only covers your tuition, then the IRS is not concerned with it, and you will not need to report it for your tax return. The second type of income that does not require you to file taxes includes scholarships that you received outside the U.S. So if you receive a scholarship from your home country to study in the U.S., it is not taxable. Because it's not U.S. source income, you do not need to report it to the IRS. The third and fourth is money transferred to you from abroad or income earned in your home country. These two are similar because these types of income are already taxed overseas, so it does not need to be reported to the IRS when you file your non-resident tax return. And you don't need to claim it. And last is interest earned on a regular savings account. As an international student or scholar, if you have a regular savings account with Chase or Bank of America, for example, the IRS will not require you to file taxes for that income source. But if you have a high-interest account, it may be reportable to the IRS. In cases where you make a capital gain or have an investment account, there's a high chance you will receive an income document from your bank, and you will need to claim it on your tax return. But for most standard accounts, you don't need to claim it. The main point here is that as a non-resident in the U.S., you are taxed on your U.S.-sourced income only. So if you have income from outside the U.S., you don't need to include that on your non-resident tax return. Here is a look at examples of income documents that you might receive for tax purposes and when you can expect to receive them. The first one is the W-2 document. The W-2 form is the most common income document that you will receive. It outlines your wages, salary, and your compensation, and it could include details about your income or any tax withheld for that income. Also, you will receive multiple W-2 documents if you have multiple employers, so just be aware of that. If you worked with 2 employers for 2023, you should expect to receive a W-2 from each one. Typically, the deadline to receive your W-2 is January 31st, 2024 for the 2023 tax year. The second document is the 1042-S. This document relates mostly to taxable scholarships, stipends, any tax treaties exempt for income, royalty payments, and prizes and awards. Remember, if you're awarded a scholarship that covers more than tuition or tuition-related expenses, you will receive the 1042-S form. But if your scholarship covers just your tuition, then you won't receive this document for that. The deadline to receive your 1042-S is March 15, 2024 for the 2023 tax year. The last type of income document is the 1099 series. It covers everything that is considered miscellaneous income. What does this include? Miscellaneous income can be from the income you made from a property, like your Airbnb. If you receive income from your Airbnb property, you will receive a 1099 series document from them. Or if you have an investment account and you make a capital gain from it, there's a high chance that you will receive a 1099 series for it. Commissions also receive this form. The most common type of income you could receive this document for is if you provide independent contractor services. Typically, if you work independently, not as an employee of a business, but as a contractor, you can expect to receive a 1099 series document. You should receive your 1099 series document by the end of March 2024 for the 2023 tax filing year. Remember, not everyone receives all these forms. You will only receive the forms that are relevant to your specific case, and it's important to wait until you receive all the expected income documents before you sit down to file your taxes. You'll need all your income documents with you to prepare your federal tax return. Let's summarize the important dates that you need to mark on your calendar. Again, the 2023 tax filing season will cover income from January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. Towards the end of January, you should receive all W-2 documents. The deadline for receiving the 1042-S is around March 15th, 2024, but you can check with your school to see if it's released earlier so that you can start filing your taxes sooner. If your income requires a 1099 series, you will receive it by the end of March. And the most important date is the tax filing deadline. This year it will fall on Monday, April 15th, 2024. Make sure you start preparing and filing your taxes early so you can avoid the last-minute rush at the end of the season. There are also some other tax forms that you may encounter while you prepare your taxes. The first one is Form 843, which is for FICA taxes. But what are FICA taxes? If you're in the U.S. aged 65 or older and need assistance with medical bills, FICA taxes can assist you with that. But as a non-resident international student, there's a chance you may not stay in the U.S. until the age of 65 to benefit from this. And for that reason, the general rule is that if you are on a J-1 or F-1 visa, you are exempt from paying FICA taxes. In many cases, however, your employers may not be aware of your tax position, and they may treat you the same as residents who pay FICA taxes. Therefore, we advise checking your W-2. If there is a section on your W-2 that states FICA or Social Security or Medicare, and taxes are withheld, and you are on an F-1 or J-1 visa, then you should ask your employer for a refund. But if your employer is not willing to issue that tax refund, you should submit your FICA tax return through SprintTax via Form 843, as you are entitled to get a full refund on all of those withheld FICA taxes. The next tax form is the W-7, which is used for ITIN applications. ITIN stands for Individual Taxpayer Identification Number and is generally required by individuals who received taxable income but are not eligible for a Social Security number. It's most common among scholarship recipients. In terms of the application process, use Form W-7 and it can be applied before filing the tax return. Moving on, we have Tax Form 1098-T. This is the #1 form misfiled every year from non-residents. The 1098-T tax form only applies to residents and is used to claim a tax credit of $1,000 for education. In some cases, students may visit websites that prepare taxes for residents. They are required to receive Form 1098-T and will receive the $1,000 tax credit. But as a non-resident, you are not eligible to receive this benefit. And if the IRS discovers that you claimed this tax credit, not only will they ask you to return the $1,000, but they could also apply fees, penalties, and interest accrual on that repayment. Be extremely cautious about this. This form is not relevant for tax non-residents, and it only applies for residents. So be mindful you do not submit the form. So, to sum up, let's go over the documents you need to have with you when you are filing taxes with SprintTax. First of all, make sure you have your passport. Second, you will need your U.S. entry and exit dates. So if you do not accurately remember all of these details, you can find them in your I-94 account. Next, the most important documents are your income documents, including W-2, 1042S, 1099 series, which we covered in an earlier slide. Remember to have your visa or immigration status information, which is the I-20 for F1 students or the DS 2019 for G1 scholars. And finally, don't forget your social security number. If you don't have an SN, you could apply for an ITIN. And the good news is that SprintTax can assist you with that application. For the detailed tutorial, you can access to the SprintTax YouTube account where there are a number of educational videos on non-resident taxes to provide further clarity on the subject of using SprintTax and non-resident taxes. There is also a SprintTax blog which go through tax-related topics and can be of use to you. Thank you for listening. That was a general overview of what you need to know for this tax season. We wish you all the best. If you have any further questions, please contact us via our email. The Office of International Services also offers in-person help sessions where you can ask your questions and receive assistance with using the SprintTax software. Come by.